All right, it's the end of the session. This is Champ or Champion, and this is Raptor, and this is their roadmap to success. So basically, I started off, Raptor blew out his ACL, or the dog version of it, and the Guardian told me that, and he's an Eastern Asian dog, they're very determined. And so the Guardian mentioned that sometimes he is aloof, and sometimes he is very, kind of works them a little bit, it sounds like. And so sometimes if he doesn't want to exercise, he just lays down on a walk. So I went over some creative ways of exercising. The Doggy Stairmaster. Remember, for all these things, you should always check with your vet to make sure your vet is okay with it. And then also make sure that they have an empty stomach. Just notice that he's here, a bunch of crack, and he's going to probably be interested in that. Yes, you have a, this guy has a, well, one of the things I'd like you to do, sit, is get in a habit of saying sit, sit. Usually it's the other way around. So if you only pull out one treat and say sit or come or whatever it is, whoever does it first gets the treat, whoever does it second doesn't get a darn thing. After a while, that motivates the second dog to want to do it. Now, one thing I want you to kind of be cautious about, though, is if he is consistently getting the treats and he's not, and it's kind of a lack of effort on his part, he's kind of a little bit trying to be assertive. And so if that's the case, we want to make sure we do it with Champ a little bit separately to make sure the Champ knows how to do these things and doesn't feel intimidated. Sit. Sit. Remember, when you give the treat, putting the treat in the mouth or giving the pet, they should hear the command word only after they put in that. Not say sit and then good dog, or down and good dog. Say sit, and then when you give the treat or the pet, then say sit a second time and let the dog know why you're petting him. All right, so for the Doggy Stairmaster, make sure you do it with an empty stomach. Do it with each dog separately. Max them out so you know what the maximum number is. I would get from this crack. This is Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver. They both really liked it. You can get it on Amazon pretty cheap. So get a big chunk of big thing of crack, show the dog you have it, throw it to the bottom of the stairs. When they lick it up, come up with a fun word that means to go down south. Call it the southernmost city in Wisconsin, which I can't tell you the name of that. And then have them come to the top of the stairs and then call it another city. And so each, remember, use fun command words, especially when you have a dog like Raptor where there's a little bit of some dominance and some assertiveness. If you come up with this levity and all the command words are funny and happy, that really can help. Actually, I've had clients who have dogs that started showing dog aggression issues. He's protective, he's not aggressive, but whose dogs started showing those things. And just because they used some fun command words, that stopped it because everybody approached was like laughing and happy and the energy was nice and light. So, all right, so come up with a fun word that means go down the stairs and up the stairs. Each dog separately. Come. Practice each dog separately and max them out the first time so you know what the maximum number is. Each down up is 1. And then find out what their maximum number is and exercise on 50 to 75% maximum number multiple times a day. You can also use, I would recommend getting the snuffle mats. Get one for each dog and feed them on the snuffle mat. That's almost like a walk each time you feed him. So that's like 2 walks that we get for feeding him twice a day. The red ball is called the Omega Paw Treat Ball. And that would be something that maybe to give him as a snack. Or if you have a guest or somebody that's coming over, give him something to do to keep him preoccupied. You can also give him the bully stick like I did. Those are getting a little expensive. But the Omega Paw Treat Ball, he nudges it around and feels good about himself. We can also leave treats around. Just Google scent games. There's a whole bunch of scent games that you can do. And then playing fetch up and down the stairs would be another nice option. And the Guardians are aware of it. Most people don't know that dogs burn more energy sniffing on walks than they do from actually walking. So continue doing that. Come up with that right combination. So play around with those elements and the number of up downs on the stairs or the treat tosses or the set games or whatever it is, till you come up with something that's reasonable that you can fit into your lifestyle, but also that achieves what we're looking for the dogs in terms of burning that energy. We also went over the importance of rules. I forgot Farley. That's what I call that. So remember, come up with a word for this. Every time that he lays his chin on you, call it chill or whatever the word is you want to use. Use that passive training we talked about. We'll talk about that again in a sec. Okay, so for the next thing we talked about was rules. Remember, enforcing the rule is not mean, or the rule itself is not negative. Enforcing the rule is not mean, Farley. And breaking the rule is a confusing way to reward a dog. So if you want to reward them, pet them, give them a belly rug, give them a bully stick, take them for a walk. There's a lot of things to do. Don't reward them by breaking the rules because that's very confusing for them. Consistency, remember, is the name of the game. A couple of housekeeping things. Dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 3 seconds to correct or reward the dog for them to make the connection, but it has to be repeated enough times consecutively before they actually figure that out. Now, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're specifically amplifying or rewarding. So if you pet an excited dog, you will make it more excited. Fearful, more fearful. Barky, invading your personal space, jumping up on you. There's all sorts of different opportunities that we do this so we confuse the dog. So if your dog is nervous, you can lay your hand on the dog, and they do associate touch with affection. But as soon as you start petting, you can amplify it. Also remember, anything your dog does in your presence you don't specifically disagree with is giving your seal of approval to. Now for Raptor, remember when people want to pet him, have them reach here and say, see how he reached in and touched me, then I reached over and I petted him. And so I ask people, if people want to pet him, one of the things I would do is, first of all, can I pet your dog? Would you like to give him a treat? Oh, I'd love to give him a treat. Raptor, sit. Sit. And you can just say it for them if they say it wrong. But if everybody he meets gives him a treat first, he's going to be in a pretty good mood. But when they go to reach to pet him, if they reach like this and he turns his head to the side or backs away or ducks his head, remember that's his way of saying, I don't want that person to pet me. The more that person doesn't pet him, the more confident he's going to be, Farley. All right, so let's see what else. Yes, I see your nose going in the air, yes. Remember to pet under the chin whenever possible and avoid petting on top of the head. Okay, so some of the rules we talked about, not being allowed in the furniture. I would get rid of your ottoman or put it in a garage or something like that temporarily, just so that he can kind of, and I would get another dog bed and put it in here. Condition the dog beds like I talked to you about. Just this one, especially right here in front of the window, I know that's not the normal spot, but I think it's going to confuse them into more guard dog behavior. While I'm on the subject, go to Kinko's, get that white paper. You can get regular paper, but I just find it kind of looks crappy if you have to tape it together, if you get that big section of paper. And don't get cardstock, because the nice thing is it does allow light to come into your room. It just is a filter. So just do it about halfway up those windows. I would just go over to the dog and just hold the treat up like this. Come on, buddy. At the window to see how high they can see and make sure that the paper goes to the top of that part. That way, every time they run to the window and bark, they can't see whether or not the bark made the thing go away, and that takes away the validation. Okay, so get the X mats if you need to for the furniture so they don't get on the furniture. And remember, if you want to, and you can always go and hug and love on them as much as you want. You just go down to their level. Think of the furniture as the VIP part of the club, and you guys as the humans are the VIPs. Farley. Okay. So remember for the dog bed, throw it to about 10 treats in a row, and if he's getting them all, then put him in the kennel and then throw 10 treats for him as well. Every time they lick it up, come up with a fun word, whiskey or whatever you want to say. And the first way is I throw 10 or 15 treats. The second way is when they're not looking, I leave a treat in the middle of it and don't say anything, wait for them to find it and then say the word. And the third way is I would lure them into a sit or an LAY and then put the treat in there and then say the command word. These are 3 ways to entice them to go there. Then when they go there on their own, pull a treat out and throw treats. So now it's like, every time I come here, it rains treats. And then every time the treat goes them out, they hear that command word. Different command word for this dog bed than the one in the bedroom. That way you can direct them to go from one to the other. Other rules, sit before you let them out of the kennel. Go to the kennel, tell them to sit. Remember the kennel, try to keep them out of the kennel for longer than 4 hours whenever possible, because that will increase the stress level or the cortisol in their blood. So go to the door, and I would just walk in the middle of it. Don't reach for either handle and say sit. If either one of them sits, start reaching for that dog's handle. If they get up, pull back, and then you can say sit again if you want, or you can walk away. I would probably pull back and wait a second or two, and if they sat down, then reach again. If they don't, within 3 seconds, then walk away, sit down here, somewhere where they can see you where you're close by, and wait 1 minute. And after 1 minute, go back to the door and tell them, sit. You want to get this one? Sit. Sit. So go to the. So what we're doing is we're saying if you want to get out of the kennel, you have to sit. And so if you sit right away, I start the process of letting you out. As soon as you get up, I pull my arm back, and I might tell you to sit a second time, but after that, I'm just going to pull my arm back and wait. And then if the dog sits, then I can continue, and if it gets up, I stop. So getting up stops it. Sitting starts it. Kind of like the video above where we went over the jumping. When you're calm, I start the process of trying to pet you. When you get excited, the process stops. And after enough repetition, then the dog will end up doing what you want them to do. Come. That's passive training. We're not ready for that yet. So the kennel, you can do that. I would also do that for the balcony. I would also do that for the bedroom, the door to go outside. But start off with the kennel and the bedroom door, because if you go to the door outside, then you have to sit there waiting. I would just sit at the bottom of the steps probably. Other things you do, tell them to sit before you even pick up the leash to put it on them. If they don't sit within 3 seconds, then walk away. if they get too excited for something, practicing that activity without culminating in the act of the activity is a great way to desensitize them. So they get too excited for the leash, tell them to sit. If they sit, then leash them up. Then go upstairs and watch TV for a little bit, and take the leash off a little bit later on. Just be supervised. Remember, it's dangerous to drag or leash around unsupervised. But we just teach the dog, if you want to do this, you got to do this for me. If you want to play fetch, you got to drop the ball and sit first, or whatever the condition is. Other rules, you're not allowed to be in the kitchen, in that L shape in the kitchen between the work island and the counters when we're preparing food, or you're not allowed to be around the dining room table when we're eating food. Remember to microwave that bacon or microwave some roast beef or something and pretend cook or pretend eat so that you can enforce those boundaries. And it might be helpful to put down some painter's tape so they know exactly where those boundaries are. Also look for other opportunities to eat I'm just thinking of another one, eating. Make sure that I would feed him first because he is your better behaved dog he has more status or rank than he does because he's of age and he just has more of the behavior that we're looking for. So I would put the line from the edge of the couch to the cabinet and put both dogs over here, put the food down, and then you eat something in 5 more bites, then he comes over to eat. When he eats, come up with your favorite dish or favorite restaurant. And when he takes his first bite of food for 4 months, you call it Didarios or whatever it is. And when he hears Didarios, there's food in his mouth. So Didarios means I eat. When he hears Didarios, there's no food in his mouth. It doesn't mean the same thing. So when he's done eating, and again, he should be eating out of those snuffle mats because those are really, really will help. When he gets done eating, we put his snuffle mat up, and then Raptor comes in, and Raptor gets eaten. When Raptor's eating, Champ's not allowed to be there. So the dogs have to eventually practice, and eventually they'll just enforce that boundary for themselves, and you won't have to do it. But every time that you feed them, now they're practicing some self-restraint, some respect for using an authority figure, and a kind of a hierarchy of, I have a little bit more status than you do, because he's pushing and trying to push him. And so we want to try to, I would say, push back metaphorically, I guess is what we're saying. And that's a great job of going to the dog bed. If he goes to the dog bed and you don't have any treats, just say the command word, whatever it is. So come up with a funny word that you guys agree on. Maybe put a little post-it note above it to make sure that you can remember. Okay. We also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if the dog comes up, and the Raptor especially, comes up and nudges you or paws at you for attention, he's telling you what to do. Remember, leaders tell, followers ask. So next time he nudges you, instead of validating, telling him, yes, you're my boss because I listen to you, give him a counter order, tell him to sit. If he sits, pet him under his chin and say the word sit once, and then pet him as much or as little as you want. If he doesn't sit, remember playing hard to get works great there too. So lean back, pull out your phone, watch TV, do something else. Let him know, buddy, if you can't sit, I got other things that to keep him occupied. After a while, he'll recognize, I can't tell the humans what to do anymore, I have to ask. Better than ask, I have to pay them for the privilege of their attention and to start paying through a currency of obedience and sitting down to prepay for that attention. When he does, make sure you reach over, pet him under his chin, say sit or whatever the command word is, and then pet him as much or as little as you want. If you don't, he'll start going back to nudging you. Now, if you pet him a little bit and then he sits again and he sits again, he's probably saying, man, I need some exercise. So that'd be a good time to do the doggy stairmaster, go for a walk or do something else. Remember to use the watchword. Paycheck means I suspect you're petting without a purpose. Even if you did it right, you would stop petting the dog and tell the dog to sit. If the dog sits, pet him on the chin and explain, I did it right, you missed it. And if the dog doesn't sit that second time, then it doesn't get that attention. And even if you want to pet them, I'd like you to make sure that you are telling the dogs to sit or lay down in order for them to earn that affection. Remember, sitting and laying down are more subordinate body postures. So they sit, that's a great way. Celebrate right there. Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. Perfect. All right, so that's petting with a purpose, which is if the dog tells you what to do or the dog prepays. Passive training is what I was talking about there, is waiting for the dog to do something on its own without any influence. I'm going to do it right here with Champ. Come. He was walking by, I just petted him and said come. And that's what I asked her to do for Raptor. So every time they sit, they come, they lay down, name all of these individual toys. This is Brett Belima. But basically name all your individual toys, and that way you can say, I want you to get that specific toy. And if they bring you something else, that's not what I wanted. Now, all balls can be balls, all bones can be bones, but having those specific names could really help. I would probably come up with a different name. You could probably say kennel for both of them, but I would come up with a different name for each kennel. So that way you can tell one of them to go, if you say kennel right now, they both run over there. So if you say, Igloo and Hilton, or whatever the names are, and maybe his name is Igloo, so you say, and all you do is just go throw a treat in there. When he goes in and licks it up, say Igloo. Let him run out, do that retention. Same thing we did with the dog bed. After a while, I say Igloo, and he runs over there. So now you can have a better vocabulary and a better conversation, more specific with the dogs. All right. We also talked, celebrate, use that as the pass, as your reward. So if somebody misses it, the dog came up to me and I missed it, somebody says celebrate, I just look at the dog and I pet them and I say whatever they're doing. Don't worry about giving a treat. You can give treats if you want, but just petting is sufficient. We also went over the escalating consequences. I'm not going to go over those in the video because that's something that you have to kind of hire me for, but if you forget about those, let me know and I'm happy to go over them with you personally. I just don't want to have other people who don't know what they are to see this video and try to use them. But remember to practice and create those scenarios where the dog has to stay behind a boundary so it practices some self-restraint and self-control. That will help, especially with Champion, because he probably would have separation anxiety come if he was left alone. He goes to dog daycare a lot. And he does follow the guardians around. So having him practice staying behind a boundary, celebrate, perfect, down. Make sure you always say the command word when you're petting them or giving the reward, because that's the most important time to hear it. And try to avoid saying good dog, because that really doesn't help as much. Petting there and know you're happy. Jamaica, wherever the word is there. That focus exercise. If you forget how to do that, go to my website, click on where it says dog training tips. On that page, on the right side of the box, there's a search box, or the bottom of the, if you're on the phone, just type in focus. And I've got hundreds of videos that go through that focus exercise. Make sure you do that 7 days. You want to get that 15-second focus in the house with no distractions for each dog separately. And eventually you do it with both dogs at the same time, but practice and teach them separately. Then the second stage is within 2 days outside, you get that 15-second focus. Then on walks, when there's nobody around, you trigger the word focus, and now it's 1 second, 1 second. Make sure you do that while you're walking. So watch that video and make sure you're watching them like a hawk. And if they do, let's say you're just sitting there and the dog looks at you, you can reach over and say focus, even though you're not playing the game. It's just reinforcing that looking me in the face is a good, rewardable, desirable thing. Okay, make sure that if you haven't already, email, by the time you're watching this, I probably should have emailed you. So make sure you email me back and just say, hey, make sure that we're on that list for the loose leash walking class if you guys want to do that. And I'm trying to think, is there anything else you want me to go over? Make sure you're eating something first before you feed him. Anything else you want me to go over? Come. Come. You came first, but you didn't do what I want. Come. Let's come over here. Sit. Well, I guess we'll go profile. This is Raptor. This is Champ or Champion. I'm David, and this is their roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you need it.